One tiny step at a time consistently is far more healing than one big change.
I had a message that she had started sleeping 5 to 6 hours a night for the first time in 17 years. She was bouncing off the walls with energy. She just couldn't believe the changes it had in her.
I lost my husband and they've lost their dad. And, we're moving on as best we can. We're not stuck in our grief. In actual fact, we worked through it really, really, really well. And it was only over the months and the years following that I was able to kind of look at it and say, this is because of homeopathy.
Homeopathy can really support you on various moments of your life, and babies and dogs are the best example when people say, oh, this is a placebo. It's not, because they cannot tell what you're giving them.
Another very interesting case is of a lady who's had frozen shoulder for many years, couldn't move her arm at all. Again, gave her constitutional remedies to improve the circulation. Along with that, I also advised some infrared therapy and castor oil, which I've found very helpful in joint issues. She's able to rotate her arm up and down, go for Pilates, she's back in action.
Her nodules actually started to reduce. Her chronic fatigue is almost all the way gone. And her hormones and her menstrual cycle finally started regulating. She had had dysregulation all her life, and she was feeling really normal for the first time in a long time.
I think it's about just letting people know that there's options. As homeopaths, we will support our clients with whatever choice they need to make. We're not here to judge at all. We're here to support them in their health journey.
When we're sitting with our clients, that all there is between us is love. You just need to sit in a state of love, and the healing is naturally there.
Hello, homies, and welcome to our final episode of 2025. Now, today is a super special episode. I know I've said that before, but this is crazy super special because for the first time ever, we've got all 8 of the homeopaths on my team. So there's 9 of us here. Go check it out on Rumble and YouTube if you don't believe me. We have got Kelly over in America, 11 p.m. at night for her, and Yagura over, I think he's Barcelona at the moment, 7 a.m. in the morning. We've got Ritu and Sarah over in Melbourne, and the rest of us in Perth. So this is a mammoth effort. So firstly, round of applause for ourselves for being here. And round of applause to our listeners for making it a whole year, or maybe even 4 years of listening to us. I've seen some people Spotify wrapped things that they've been tagging me in. You know how you get your Spotify wrapped at the end of the year, and Homeopathy Hangout podcast has been the #1 podcast for a few people. Somebody tagged me. They've had 4,500 minutes of listening to the podcast. So round of applause to that person. But we're quickly going to go around the room and everyone's going to say hi. Kelly Palomino, say hi.
Hello, great to be here.
Angela Pierce-Jones.
Hello, everyone from Perth.
Elaine McDonald.
Hello, everyone. Also from Perth. Well, actually in Bustleton just now, but hello.
Nicole McConnon.
Hello, everybody. Hello from Perth.
And Ritu Tangri.
Hello from Melbourne. Hello, everyone.
Yagura Salevska.
Good morning from Barcelona.
Yay! Sharon Ralston.
Good afternoon from Perth.
And Sarah Scott.
I feel like I'm on Eurovision.
Hello
from Melbourne. Ireland, Nilqua.
My lovely horse.
Love it. So to keep today's episode nice and fresh, I've just given the team the task of share with our audience what's been either your favorite book, a course that you've done, something fun that you've learned this year, an interesting case, something to share with our listeners. And they've all prepared something for you. We're going to start with Kelly because she might fall asleep halfway through this. So we're going to let her go first. And then if she needs to go off and head to bed, that's good too. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Awesome, thanks. Well, I thought that I would share about an ultrasound remedy case that I just recently did, and also touch on why it's important to have the same homeopath take your whole family's case, and also kind of to show a little bit about the red thread that goes through. So I'll just give a little brief intro about the case and then chat on that. So this gal, she had severe infertility issues. trouble maintaining her pregnancies. She also had chronic fatigue, Hashimoto's, Epstein-Barr, long COVID, and some neurological and kidney issues. And really, at a young age, she developed 2 thyroid nodules. And she also grew up in an alcoholic home. She took on the parent's role, as is very common in, traumatic homes. She tried to be super obedient and not disappoint people. And she did not feel safe at home, had a lot of shame about it, her parents being alcoholic, and tried not to let her friends find out at school. So she excelled in everything that she did. I originally treated her with some megapotencies to help clear the shock and the grief from the infertility issues, and also the shame and the anger that she was carrying. And I also gave her some thyroid and kidney support remedies as well. But most importantly, we did an ultrasound detox, because I was shocked when she told me how many ultrasounds that she had, but she had well over 50 ultrasounds in a period of like 15 years. She was scanned a lot for her thyroid nodules, but then she also had a few years of pregnancy problems where she was getting scanned a lot. And then her very first full-term pregnancy, they scanned her and the baby every 6 weeks. So the megapotencies really helped her to set clear boundaries with her family. And then the ultrasound clear really was like phenomenal for healing. Her nodules actually started to reduce. Her chronic fatigue is almost all the way gone just after the ultrasound detox. And then we did an Epstein-Barr clear as well, and we had some strong shifts with that. And her hormones and her menstrual cycle finally started regulating. She had had dysregulation all her life, and she was feeling really normal for the first time in a long time. So she ended up sending me her daughter, and the one that had all of the ultrasounds in utero. And so her daughter, as a young girl, had a bullying incident at school, and it made her so afraid to go to school that they ended up homeschooling her. She had a lot of anxiety, but she also got some facial dermatitis from that. And so I took her case and I prescribed what I saw from the case. And I was sitting down and I was emailing them. And right when I wrote out all of the prescription, it like dawned on me, this is the exact prescription that I gave her mother. And so I looked through her file, and sure enough, it was exactly the same. And so aside from the ultrasound history, they had 2 different cases. It was completely different. She was from a very loving home, family oriented. It was only the ultrasound that was the same, but there was obviously some sort of ancestral trauma that had been passed from generation to generation, and also going back into their, parents and grandparents. You could see that red thread that goes through. So in all my cases, I try to look for that theme that seems to like repeat itself over the lifetime or around an incident, and even well back into the ancestry, the parents and the grandparents, if they know, more about them. And I call that the red thread. And so when I see that little thread going through the case, then I will prescribe on that. And so often I find that it opens doors and it allows the ancestral traumas to clear. And so this was definitely a case where the mom's anxiety was matching the same as the daughter's, and it was just passed down to her. And then that trauma from school triggered something in her. And so the experiences were different, the traumas were different, but they all expressed very same, it was very similar. And that's why the same remedies came up. So yeah, that's why I wanted to share this case in particular, to point out how ultrasound clears can be beneficial if, you see it very clearly in the case, but also that it's really a great idea to have the same homeopath treat their whole family, because a lot of times they can see that thread that goes through the ancestry when they're treating everyone. So that was my interesting case.
That is so great. It's great that you mentioned about treating the same, seeing the same homeopath for the family. It really does make a difference. Often I get asked, we get so many social media messages, emails, all sorts of phone calls going, which homeopath on your team should I book with for XYZ? And I always say to people, go to my website. You can now just go eugeniekruger.com/homeopaths. Then all the homeopaths are on there. Each of them have prepared between a 1 and a 3 minute video, and you will get a good feel for the homeopath. And you can then book a 15-minute free discovery call with them if you're still unsure before you go ahead and book. But sometimes people are just too busy and literally they cannot even watch a 1 to 3 minute video or book a discovery call. So each of us have our little area of experience or little area that we just like a little bit more than the rest, or that we specialize a little bit more in. And so if you want to explore mega potencies, like Callie is the one that I send everyone to. She has taught, I think, all of us so much about mega potencies because she's got her own healing story. She's been on the podcast with that before as well. So if you've tried conventional homeopathy and you've been maybe seeing a very classical homeopath and you haven't had results, and you've worked with that person for a long period of time, and you want to explore mega potencies, always send people to Callie for mega potencies. Angela, you were going to ask something as well.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I was just thinking while you were talking about the ultrasound, it's just quite interesting, as homeopaths in our philosophy, essentially we're always looking at the vital force as, the energy that holds everything harmoniously. And we really do see that as an energetic vibration that we're looking to try and get back into balance. So I guess it's just interesting hearing your story with the ultrasound, which is really an energetic vibration and frequency that's getting added into the system. What are your thoughts about that?
I almost see it as a suppression. I feel like those constant inundated ultrasounds were doing something that was very suppressive in the body, and it was not allowing her to function properly. So I think it created more dysfunction rather than, they were intending for it to just look at the thyroids and keep a check on it, but she was worsening clearly. So yeah, whether it is suppression or just like a vibration that is, it's definitely toxic.
Yeah, so interesting.
Kelly, can I just ask, with the clearing that you did of the ultrasound, did you use the Tan Janssen type method or a different type of clearing? How do you do clearings?
With this one, I did the Tan version. So she just did it, twice a week and increased, with each potency after 4 doses each.
And with ultrasound clearings, do you do any supportive other ones in the 4 potencies alongside it? Or is it just purely the ultrasound with whatever constitutional and miasmatic remedies
with this one, I gave her some kidney support because she was already having some kidney things. And so I know berberis was in there. I can't recall what else was there, but I did have some thyroid and kidney support that I was giving her as well alongside.
I'm going to hand you a question. Sorry. I haven't used mega potencies a lot, so I'm really keen to hear I know you this was about beyond that when you were prescribing more recently, but when you're starting with the case, and I know it's going to be individualized, but what kind of potency might you look at when you're starting with the mega potencies, and how many remedies would you be using at once when you're looking at a case like that, the initial kind of prescriptions that you were doing to help clear things?
Yeah, I tend to prescribe a little less than some people do just because I don't want to open up a whole can of worms all at one time. And I want to be able to see what remedy is working. And so I'll tend to just do one mega potency at a time and watch. And I have them reply to me pretty consistently, every couple of days, just marking what they're doing. I might not make changes, but I just want to see how the body is responding so that I know whether or not I'm going to redose. And so that's kind of how I do it. And I start with a 10 mm is usually the potency that I'll start with. Sometimes a CM, but 10 mm for normal dosing is the common prescription.
Love that. Angela, are you okay to go next?
Okay, well, when Eugenie invited us to share something from the year, I was just reflecting on the year thus far. It's been a big year for me, a lot of deep personal work, a lot of, facing some deep challenges in life. And so for me, I think because I don't shy away from the hard work and the hard questions, and I really actually love to deep dive into the big questions, like who am I and what's my purpose? And, people who, we're all looking for happiness, we're all looking for love. I think it's a very common human theme because that's, I guess, my area of interest and how I like to work with people. I'm also always looking for medicine, so remedies to really deepen my knowledge and like give me more tools, I guess, to help people. And this year I did a course with Elise Timmerman. So she taught her matridonal remedies, the gifts of the mother. And for those who may not be aware, the matridonal remedies are homeopathic remedies made from the human and mothering substances. So they would be called sarcodes in homeopathy, healthy substances. And so they are remedies made from substances such as amniotic fluid, placenta, vernix, menses blood, estrogen, DNA. So these and most importantly, breast milk. I mean, I think for me, breast milk, lac humanum or lac maternum, is just a huge remedy that I think everybody can get benefit from. So I really enjoyed deep diving into those remedies. It's huge knowledge because she's also teaching. She did this work, Elise Timmerman has done this work since about 1990. And some remedies took 10 years to, many triturations and taking a long time for this information to kind of come through. So a lot of the remedy substances have been proven through triturations through at least to like a C6 level. So very deep level information. So to be honest, I feel a lot of it's just still inside me percolating. But yeah, really what I loved, I guess, is also Elise herself and the way she approaches homeopathy and the client. And I think what I really loved was something that she said about when we're sitting with our clients, that all there is between us is love. And she said, you just need to sit in a state of love and the healing is naturally there. And that really we just need to kind of get out the way to allow this natural state to arise between us. And she spoke about the organon, so the aphorism 9 and the organon. So I'm going to read that one for everybody. So aphorism 9 is where he says, in the healthy condition of man, the spiritual vital force, the dynamis that animates the material body, rules with unbounded sway, and it retains all parts of the organism in admirable, harmonious, vital operation as regards both sensations and functions, so that our indwelling, reason-gifted mind can freely employ this living, healthy instrument for the higher purposes of our existence. And I love that aphorism because it just reminds me of what a privileged position we are as homeopaths, because we are ultimately really trying to go to that place with our clients, right? Of like, what is our higher purpose of our existence? And Elise said that higher purpose of existence, or that balanced, healthy state, is actually a state of love. She said it is a state of good harmony and freedom, of developing unconditional love, where we have no guilt, where we trust in what you are. You are not disturbed by judgment of yourself. You are feeling free, you're feeling kind, and you're feeling loving for yourself and to yourself, and therefore to the other. And I feel, there's a lot of talk, I guess, in alternative health in our circles. There's a lot of talk about the new age and what that means. And for me, I really feel it's something about coming to that state of love. That love is a more natural state for everybody. And so I feel homeopathy is really like beautifully placed to facilitate, for us to kind of shepherd people through their personal journey, because transformation is difficult. It's not easy. Healing can be very challenging. Often healing is not something that happens overnight. It's something that can be quite complex, and it can sometimes not move at the pace that you want it to move at. But where was I going with that? Yeah, I think with our remedies, and I guess even these remedies, these mothering substances, they're very critically placed to facilitate that journey of coming to a place of like a more loving connection within ourselves. And I feel like when we can achieve that, that strengthens everything, really. Everything becomes easier when we are in a more harmonious relationship with ourselves. So I haven't really spoken about the substances themselves, but I would say of all the substances, like the ones that I have tended to use the most are Vernix and Lac Humanum and Lac Maternum. And so Vernix, I tend to attract very open people who are very comfortable with one foot in this dimension and another in others. And I do find like with those people, Vernix is very helpful. So Vernix is just a great remedy for people where their boundaries are just very open. And so when they're walking in the world, everything's just coming in, and it can create a lot of confusion. It's very hard for them to know what's me or what's not me. And when you bring Vernix into the equation, it really just seems to help kind of like filter out a lot of noise so that people can come closer to know like what it is inside themselves that is them, that is theirs to work out, instead of a confusion of like, oh, some of this is mine, but actually it's also all the people around me that I have just taken on their issues as well. So it just helps clarify that. And yeah, Lac Maternum is just a huge remedy, I find, for, you know, in homeopathy, we're always asking about birth and the birth experience. And I just love to use that remedy, especially when there's instances where maybe a person hasn't been breastfed and not had that opportunity to receive the mother's milk, which is the food of love, as Elise would say. And I really love that remedy. I use it often, even if maybe a child has been born, it's been unexpected C-section, child's been taken away. There's a lot of anxiety in the mother about that. This can be years later even. I love to give both the mother and the child that Lac Maternum. I give both of them the remedy because I feel it just gives an opportunity for that bonding to occur that might not have happened. And many times it's happening without the will of the mother. Every mother wants to have that nurturing experience and nurture their child and have that connection. Sometimes it's just circumstances are out of your control. I love to use that remedy to try and facilitate that bond.
That's amazing, Angela, that you did that course. I love matridonals as well. And I find that some of the cases you need to, as you said, I was about to ask if you see that the mom and the child needs a similar remedy, which is really beautiful to see that sometimes it's not even at the same time, but they might need at various different moments the same remedy. And have you had any case that you see that they need like a sequence of the remedies? Because that's what I sometimes encounter as well, that you go from one, you open something, and then you need to go to another one, which...
I always see it like as humans, we just have a lot of basic needs that we want to be met. And so I feel like those matridonal remedies just heal certain parts. So is it like, oh, do I belong? Am I accepted in my family? You know, or am I on the outside? You might need one remedy, you know, if you're feeling, oh, like I think like folliculinum, I tend to often give for when women are in their older years, you know, perimenopausal, and they've spent their whole life in service and giving and sacrificing, and then they find themselves in this transitional phase and they don't know who they are. And like folliculinum is just so connected to that. But what you'll find is sometimes you're meeting someone for the first time at that time of their life, and when you take their whole story, going all the way back, further back are these other remedies that are needed. You know, it's almost like these remedies can just meet these inner needs that we all have as human beings to just be loved and seen and accepted. So yeah, I would say definitely more than one remedy sometimes is needed.
Awesome. Yeah, I see similar things in cases, and sometimes going back and increasing potency is also something I see. And they may need more of the remedy again and again when things surfacing.
Well, I think, I mean, I can only speak from personal experience. Sometimes that message, it's like it's not the easiest one to integrate. When you're trying to work on self-love, you're trying to work on like coming into good relationship with yourself. It's not something that happens overnight. So luckily we do have the remedies it is like a little gentle reminder, isn't it? And I think like you can work with that different different repetition and different potency. And it's just, to me, it's just like you're just giving that little whisper, like a little reminder for the person, because life, we fall back into habitual behavior very quickly. So, yeah.
So I have to say, right or wrong, but Angela, when people ask, who to book with, if it's medically complex, I usually send them straight to you. And I've had Angela on the podcast as well. She did train in South Africa. So, they train as, alongside the medical doctors as well. And I don't know if we have time. Maybe we can come back to you had an incredible cured case this year, but maybe we'll see if there's time at the end, because that would be such a good one to share as well. Sarah, are you okay to go next?
Sure. I just wanted to share as well on matridonals. I love them as well. I've had a lot of success using placenta for pregnant women with placenta previa. And I know Eugenie, and I'm sure a lot of other of you here have used that as well. But every case that I've had with it has resolved. So it's an amazing remedy. I've used it alongside with sepia, usually in a certain protocol. But yeah, I love the matridonals. Okay, so what I wanted to share this year, well, first of all, I just want to say congratulations to everyone to getting to the end of 2025. What a year we've had, my goodness. I'm sure some of you have had amazing, blessed years and you've all been thriving, but mine has been rough. So I am congratulating myself on getting to 2025, the end of it, and hoping for a calm 2026. What I wanted to share and what I love seeing clients for, I love doing pregnancy and fertility and all that kind of stuff, but I've really gotten into homeoprophylaxis. In the last couple of years, I've been running group sessions. So homeoprophylaxis it's a system of using nosodes in homeopathy, so remedies made from disease product or viruses or bacteria that you would usually get a vaccine for, and utilizing the homeopathic remedy of that pathogen in a certain sequence to train the immune system to be aware of it, what it's like to have a T1 general sort of immune response in the body, to have the experience of that pathogen without having to sort of contract the disease and having all the things that come along with getting the disease itself. So I've been in Australia, we have some constraints, and there's places around the world that you have constraints with kindergarten and schooling and things like that. And if you are not up to date with your vaccinations, you won't be allowed entry here in Australia into kindergarten. So a lot of parents are beginning to sort of see what else is out there, if there's other options, if they don't have to do childcare or kindergarten, what else can they do to kind of support their children in this evolutionary stage of going through an exposure to pathogens and not being sort of fearful of disease, but seeing what happens when you have exposure in a very safe, contained way, and what sort of evolutionary process happens within the child. So I do one-on-one sessions. A lot of us here on the team do that. And then I run group sessions in it as well. So I get parents together, capped at about 10 parents, and we just go through the program. I follow Isaac Golden's program here in Australia. He's a Victorian homeopath who is the king of homeoprophylaxis, and most of the research around the world is based on his research that he did here in Australia. I've also recently become certified with Kate Birch over in Australia with the Free and Healthy Children International Organization, and her course is based on Isaac's course, so it has all the foundations of that. There's just a few differences that are added. It starts off with tuberculinum to kind of initiate the immune system. Polio is added in to help close the tight junctions in the gut and to help protect against things like leaky gut later on in life. And there's a few nuances, a few differences, but it is all based on Isaac's work, and she created the program sort of with his approval. So they're very cohesive, the two of them. So I offer both of these in the sessions that I run. I kind of run through with Isaac's, and then I expand and kind of go through what Kate's is if people want to add in some extra levels to it. And the amazing thing working with Kate and studying with her over in America is she does so many more homeoprophylaxis programs. So generally, it's usually just the childhood immunization program that's covered. But with hers, I think there's 11 different programs. So there's a healthy pregnancy one, there's Strep B for pregnancy. There's a healthy biome one. There's a healthy sexuality one as well for 17 to 25-year-olds. There's a geriatric one. So there's different stages of life when you're going through these different evolutionary sort of rebirths and time pressure areas of your life and transitions. And there's a protocol that can support you through that so you can gain what you need to from these pathogens that are in our environment. Yeah, so I do it as a group kind of session, which I adore because it just means this can be quite a lonely path to choose this and not choose, what's considered the accepted option of vaccination. And often people think, well, if it's either vaccination or I do nothing. And there is actually this other option which gives greater benefit long term. And that's the research that Isaac Golden has shown us. And when you get a group of people together that have potentially feel like they're making a very lonely decision on their own, a very isolated decision, and you get them together in a group, it just really gives them such confidence to be able to keep walking that path and showing them that not to be careless about disease, to be definitely be conscientious, and we want to make sure that we're supporting as needed when things come up, but that we don't need to be afraid of it. And like, I'm sure we've all witnessed that when your child goes through a viral period, when they come through at the other end, they suddenly have more teeth, or they can talk more, or they're more independent, or they're running, or they're walking, or whatever it is, they've done some sort of evolutionary leap in their development. And that happens as a result of going through this process. So homeoprophylaxis helps us go through those processes in a really safe and contained way. So that's what I wanted to share. I've got a few books that I want to share on it if anyone wants to kind of read more about it. So these are probably the main ones. This might all be backwards because of the camera, but this is The Solution by Kate Birch, and that kind of goes through the basics of what homeoprophylaxis is and how you follow it and what to do and all that. And then this one is Vaccine-Free Prevention and Treatment of Contagious Diseases. And this is like, it's a big book. There's lots to go through. I haven't finished it myself, but it's so interesting. It goes into why diseases have kind of appeared in certain societies at certain points in time and what the political views were and the sort of socioeconomic status were at that time and sort of what comes about as a result of that and how that's needed then for the society's evolutionary step forward, a bit like the children. So that's what I wanted to
Is that
share.
one also Kate's book, the second one?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I'm super glad that you mentioned about strep B because so many women get this strep B, it's the swabs towards the end of the pregnancy and they test positive and then they take the antibiotics and that obviously, sets baby up for not a great gut and there's all sorts of issues down there. And I have helped a few women over the years clear strep B within the shortest period of time was a week. And I remember saying to this woman, look, I don't know if we're actually going to be able to do this in a week. It's a bit too short, but we did it. But usually, with as long as you have at least a couple of weeks, you can often clear group B strep with the correct homeopathic remedies. So I'm super glad that you mentioned that, Sarah, because if we can just do as much as possible to get that gut microbiome set up really well at the start of, when giving birth and at the start of baby's life, it really just helps you so much down the track.
And I think it's about just letting people know that there's options. Like
Yes.
you hear one thing, like hear the problem, and then you're given the solution. But there's multiple solutions. There's many ways to sort of get to the end of the road. So I think it's just about educating people, letting them know that there are other things that they can do, even if they just want to view it. And this is kind of the way I view everything in life. It's, well, I can try this first and then I can do something else. You can always just try the homeopathic version of it first and see how you get on with it. And most of the time, I think we'd all testify that everyone goes away very happy. But if you still need to do something further down the track, that's absolutely fine. As homeopaths, we will support our clients with whatever choice they need to make. We're not here to judge at all. We're here to support them in their health journey. So yeah, I think it's just about educating people, letting them know that there is something we can do homeopathically or something we can try homeopathically first.
And needless to say, a lot of our homeopathic immunization questions that we get, we just send them straight to Sarah to book with her, but also for fertility and babies. And Sarah's sister is actually a midwife as well. So they've got a big, history there. And Sarah's also been on the podcast before, so you can go listen back on those episodes. Unlike somebody else, Mrs. Sharon Ralston, who I have been trying to get as a single guest on the podcast for 4.5 years now. So she is my OG member of the team. Sharon joined the team in June 2021, was it? I think June 2021.
Was.
Yeah, April, maybe it was like April-ish.
April.
Yeah, April 2021. So it's been a while.
Ah,
Sharon, what would you like to share with us?
well, I want to ask Sarah a question. Sorry, Sarah, that with the tuberculinum, what sort of stage and age does Kate recommend giving the tuberculinum for babies as the start of their?
Pretty much from birth. So you can start it from 2 weeks old, and then beyond that, you can start at any stage. But yeah, after 2 weeks, you
And
can
what
start that.
potency does she
It's a
start
1M,
with? A 1M.
single
Nice.
dose.
Yeah, single dose.
Yeah.
Amazing. Very good. So now for me, what I'm going to talk about is I'm doing a book review because I decided I'd rather. So I'm going to be reading some of it so that I don't leave things out. I've recently read Drowning Lifeguards by Ruth Hull. So Ruth's a homeopath who's also done a master's in counseling. And her book, Drowning Lifeguards, it's a practical guide for people living with long-term fatigue, overwhelm, and burnout, and mostly for those caring for others around them. And we have a lot of young mums. We see a lot who are on the verge of this, I feel. Many people recognize themselves whilst reading the book as the drowning lifeguard. And Ruth's book, the whole way through, she just gives great explanations of how to cope with this and how to realize that this isn't a personal failing. They're practical tips all the way through the book. A big one always being aim for the smallest next step and not for a big transformation. Small, gentle, doable shifts, one tiny step at a time consistently is far more healing than one big change. The book is divided into 3 parts. Part 1 on eating for energy and healing. Part 2 is the mental health and setting boundaries and what matters. And then part 3, that of course is always the deep work, the grief, the loss, the trauma, and where this all started, where the self-doubt or where the compensation began. The other things with Ruth's book, overall, it just offers the person a clear, kind pathway back to themselves, because often these people are harsher on themselves. They always more judgmental and, oh, well done, Eugenie, what have you got? The book there. There you go. And it offers overwhelmed people a clear, kind pathway back to themselves, beginning with the body, moving through the emotional patterns, and finally addressing the deeper stories that the body's been holding. So with her food as well, with the eating, Ruth guides you. There's always, with Ruth, she always gives you practical tips the whole way through. So you actually can start reading and action it straight away. And I think that's always makes people feel they've got this and they can get on with it. So with the eating, she guides you through why you want to balance your blood sugar levels, how to reduce inflammation, repair the leaky gut, and nourish your microbiome. She explains how balancing all of these, and us as homeopaths or health workers, people know these things. And most of our clients know these things as well. But by reading them, it reminds you as to, where to go and what to do. Part 2, she also gives you tips on how to set your boundaries, prioritize what actually does matter, and just to build more sustainable patterns in your life. So Ruth, actually, her great aunt was my homeopath as a child growing up. And we only found that out later, and it was incredible. I was busy telling Angela about it. And she said, I've just met this woman. And this sounds like her, she knew her. So that's all I can share. A great book to read, easy. And also, it combines a few different books of strategies. The Body Keeps the Score, The Glucose Goddess. She's also got a book, The Glucose Revolution, which also helps you on balancing blood sugar levels. So I think Ruth's book almost combines all of those things.
Beautiful. Now, Sharon, some people really want to see a homeopath in person, and Sharon has a beautiful clinic here in Perth where she does see the families in person. Sometimes they come in there and they create chaos in her clinic, but some people just insist they really want to see someone in person. So it is good that Sharon has that option. All of our homeopaths you can see online, But, sometimes you do get that person that just wants to see somebody in person. But I always, when somebody just wants a good, like, general family practitioner, I send them to Sharon. And you do work with a lot of children as well. But have you got like a real special interest?
I love getting parents when they're starting their homeopathy journey because right up until then, they didn't even realize there was an option where they didn't have to have antibiotics. They just thought they had to do that. Whereas, by helping them find the remedies and teaching them how to do their own self-prescribing, their acute prescribing, that they realize that actually let's give this a try, give it 2 or 3 days and then see where you go. And if you still need to, then and usually, yeah, they don't get there. And it's amazing. So often we get young children that come in and they've been on antibiotics, their immune system, the parents say, I've just had the sickest child, no immune system. And then suddenly 6 months later, that's not the problem. There's something else that's going on, but they haven't been sick since. So it's a great thing. So that's what I love doing, I must say. It's
That's
my
beautiful.
favorite.
And Sharon's 3 children are all adults now and thriving. So, she's been there and done that. So it really helps.
Yeah, and I had my second child. He was, and in his first year, I was walking out of the doctor's and he had been prescribed antibiotics for the third time with an ear infection. And that's when I went back to my homeopath and I was like, there's got to be something else we can do. And then I did a first aid course, and yeah, then the rest is history. Just so really, the people I see is, I feel, my journey.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Ritu, are you happy to share with us what you've been up to this year?
Yeah, so I'm just picking up thread from where Sarah left regarding giving tuberculinum, and I just wanted to share something about another nosode, which is your carcinosin. And I've had an interesting case of carcinosin. Now, carcinosin usually, brings up what has been silenced. So in case of, stress or grief or any past history of drugs or cancers, so it helps us to see what's been silent. But in this case, this person had a tuberculosis, a TB shot when this lady was 35 now, when I saw her a few months ago. But she had this TB shot, and she's from New Zealand. So when she was a kid, and she developed a big mark and a nodule on her left arm. And after giving her carcinosin for the other issues, basically she came to me for folliculitis. That mark moved, the nodule moved from her left to her right arm, and then came back to her left arm and disappeared. So this was a great result in terms of a record for us too, because we keep reading about carcinosin clearing up birthmarks, but this was amazing. So that was one of my interesting cases, should I say. The others, basically, I've seen, I've had 3 interesting cases which are at the top of my mind at the moment. One is a case, a lady, 75-year-old lady with femoral palsy, which actually happened after she slipped in the bathroom and followed by a surgery. And she was almost paralyzed in her left leg. So she could not move around. She was in crutches. She had to be lifted by her children. And I gave her remedies basically to improve her circulation. There are remedies that help with nerve regeneration. And there were remedies for emotional support because she was so scared by now that she couldn't even go to the bathroom without help because she slipped. That's why she slipped. And I think I've been giving her remedies for 3 months, and she's able to walk around now. And this is when she was actually feeling hopeless. And I remember she was almost in tears on her first appointment because she is a person who's generally very, very active. So that was one of my cases. The other case is a child who's had supraventricular tachycardia. And we took down the case history, gave him a constitutional remedy. And this child is very sensitive to our remedies. So I like such cases because you actually give a remedy and you're able to see the effect immediately. I gave him matridonal and the child started to sleep on his chest. So, that actually brings up all the provings on our records. And so for this child, along with his constitutional, I gave him crataegus. So crataegus is basically, again, improving the circulation in the heart, improving the myocardial vitality and the rhythm. And the mom did see the cardiologist, did see the GP. Obviously, they couldn't do anything much except for wait and watch, whereas this child was obviously suffering. So with our remedies, the child has been perfectly fine. So far, so good, doing really well for the last few months. Another very interesting case is of a lady with who's had frozen shoulder for many years, couldn't move her arm at all. Again, gave her constitutional remedies to improve the circulation. Along with that, I also advised some infrared therapy and castor oil, which I've found very helpful in joint issues. She's able to rotate her arm up and down, go for Pilates, she's back in action. So, the common thread I've seen in many of my cases is that our remedies work really well when they're supported by improving their circulation, draining the lymph, supporting any inherited tendencies, giving some miasmatic remedies. So I think I've seen that really does speed up the action of the remedies. And as Sarah was also saying, we can reach the same goal through many different paths. And I'm sure so that's why homeopathy is definitely a science and an art. And we pick up the threads from what interests us most and then follow that through. So yeah, these have been some really interesting cases for me for this year. But I think every case we are treating is a marvel, and I'm sure we're all so passionate that we just very grateful. And personally, I'm very grateful to have a beautiful team, Eugenie. So yes.
I send a lot of allergy and eczema cases like that to you, Ritu. Like if somebody comes with allergies and eczema and that sort of things, I send them straight to you because I know you've got a very successful history in treating that. But also Ritu also has medical training in India where they also train as medical doctors and homeopaths. And that was over 20 years ago that Ritu trained. And she's written a book on materia medica. And I've had her on the podcast in the past as well. So do go have a listen to that as well. But is there any, that's the people that I sent to you, but actually, what would you say are your special interest areas?
I think, well, yes, definitely respiratory issues. I also love to treat female gynecological issues, fibroids, and, but I think it's from what, again, I've seen, we have to marry the lifestyle along with remedies. So a lot of it is coming from a lifestyle and stress, which we have to address as well. And yeah, migraines and so on and so forth. Every case is interesting, but I know we can definitely reach there. I think we just want that the clients should definitely follow up. That's really, really important because we are trying to clear up the layers and every case, and we're trying to address the etiology. So there is so many things happen through our lives. There could be so many reasons for an issue. So clearing up the layers comes through follow-up.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I also just want to say kudos to Kelly. It's midnight for her. You really are allowed to go to bed if you want. Elaine, you're up next.
Hi. Gosh, I don't know how you do it, Kelly. I'd be a zombie at this stage. You're amazing. Fantastic to have the whole team together. I don't know when the last time we actually are all together. We've had a hit and miss in our meetings recently, so it's nice to see everyone in the one spot, in the one area. My thing I wanted to actually talk about was a case, because it's a case I've been running since July 2024, but it's actually changed my perspective a little bit. And so I'll briefly run through that. It's a 51-year-old Irish nurse, and she suffered from chronic insomnia. So we're talking 2 hours a night for 15 years. And she'd been through the system. She'd, tracked her sleep. She'd been put on medications. She tried sleeping tablets. She did 6 sleeping tablets and slept for 20 minutes. She went through the next step. She was put in HRT then. It was like, okay, you're obviously perimenopausal. We're just going to put you on HRT. Then they put her on progesterone. They're just everything and nothing did anything. And half of the stuff was unnecessary anyway. But it's it was just one of these cases. There was so many layers to it. And there was so many things going on. She had her brother had died 15 years previously, very tragically, actually, a very tragic thing that happened. And then she was also she just qualified as a nurse. So she was doing night shifts. And, there's all, as a homeopath, you're like, oh God, yeah, well, there's definitely this grief and there's definitely the night watching and there's all these things going on. And as the case went on, we definitely got through layers. I remember that first anniversary after it happened with her brother, she left a message with me. She says, oh my God, this is the first year I haven't gone through everything in my head. I wasn't thinking about the police station and everything that happened. I feel like, I've gone somewhere. But at this stage, we're a year in and the insomnia hasn't changed. It's still 2 hours a night, and I don't know how anyone can actually survive in that. And she was going up through highs and lows on that. So my my background when I first discovered homeopathy was my son. He was vaccine injured way back when he was 2. So we're talking about 10 years ago now. Like if only I had done Sarah's course back then, things would have been very different. But our biggest, we used homeopathy, we used the GAPS diet, but we also used heavy metal chelation or chelation, whichever way you like to say it. And I was in that world of mercury. I knew it inside out, upside down for 4 years. We're doing the Andy Cutler method, so it takes time. And I discovered along this case that this patient, she had 14 amalgam fillings, and a few of them had actually been put in the last few years, even though they're meant to be being phased out in Europe. But there's a lot of cowboys in Ireland, so it didn't surprise me that they went in. They're probably just getting rid of what they'd left. But yeah, so what my understanding of toxicity and mercury, and I just had a feeling this was the maintaining cause. And over the course of it, she did remove all the fillings, but I knew it wasn't enough. Like, so my belief was she was going to have to use chelation. I thought, you know, and even after the last filling is taken out, there's a 3-month period where the organs start to dump out all the mercury, because that's where we store it. It starts to dump it out into the bloodstream because we're no longer exposed to this. And I knew she was probably going to go even more downhill. But the last prescription around this, when this should have been happening, was actually it was just a big learning for me. It ended up being a remedy that suited her. There was lots of things that fitted in. But actually, when I looked into the clinical therapeutics and the toxicity of mercury, it was actually in there. I didn't even know it was in there. I was actually surprised it was in there. And I used that in a low potency. And then we had a miasmatic remedy that, like, we've been basically on a journey through different, I do like very much Burnett style. So we traveled through a lot of the miasms, whether they're dormant or not, that not everybody agrees with, but I do really enjoy that way of prescribing. But yeah, so whatever, this miasmatic one we use on a weekly basis. And within 3 weeks, I had a message that she had started sleeping 5 to 6 hours a night for the first time in 17 years. She was bouncing off the walls with energy. She just couldn't believe the changes it had in her. And it wasn't even a Tanya Janssen protocol. Like, I thought maybe when we might, before I encourage her to do chelation, because chelation is actually really hard. It's a long process and it does stir up a lot of things. So I thought maybe we might go down the Tanya Janssen route before we do that. Like, so it was just so interesting for me that actually, no, back to the polycrests and the clinical therapeutics and the toxicities and how they can actually clear these that happen to our vital force. And yeah, it was a learning curve for me. Like, so she doesn't have to do chelation. I was thinking, thank God, I don't have to encourage her to do it, and it's such an easier way. And I'm just going to run that straight into one other thing that it's been really amazing for me this year, because it kind of sort of highlights that to me as well. Like, since May, I've been volunteering in a homeopathy project. It's in Gambia. It's been set up by a fantastic homeopath many years, about 20 years ago. And then it shut down in 2019 because of COVID. They used to go over there 2 weeks a year. And since May, they've managed to set up a volunteer homeopathic clinic. I know Nicole was volunteering back there with me. I think maybe Sharon has joined it recently. But it's more what I want to say. It's these people, it's been a really humbling experience. Like, there's people here with literally nothing. They have no electricity, they have no running water. And then they come to this clinic, they have such openness, such dignity. Yeah, it's been really beautiful. But more to me, it's amazing how the remedies work really quickly with these people. And like, we're doing, like, I mean, I was there last night, so it was Thursday, yeah, last night, and like, we had, I think, 6-7 clients in that hour. And it's really short case taking. There's no frills, it's just the essentials. We don't have time. These people have walked maybe 20K to get there, and the results are remarkable, even in these chronic conditions. And I've been thinking a bit about this, like, because, you know, when I see the complication of that other case that had, like, you know, the hormonal layers and the mercury and obviously the grief, and there was other family dynamics going on. But I seem that these people don't seem to carry the same weight of suppression as we do. They're less pharmaceutical overload, less internalized stress, and there seems to be more space in the system for healing to happen. Even though they have such basic lifestyles, they have to work daily for food, they have a lot of grief. However, it just made me reflect a bit, like, you know, we're unraveling decades of medications, emotional suppressions, toxic exposures. And that's probably why it actually takes so much more time. And like, even with that case, I'm really appreciative of that client. She, you know, it took us 16 months to get there, but it was just an unraveling case. So it was really lovely to do.
That's amazing, Elaine. What I've found as well with the Gambia, also, we don't give remedies for more than 10 days. And that's incredible. That's it, 10 days. And then they've got to come back if things aren't resolved, hey?
Actually get them all. The idea of that is to get this cycle that they actually start coming back every 10 days.
Yeah. But it's still, like you say, to walk 20 Ks to come, it still takes something for all of them. And what I found amazing is like I had these children and they're two kids sitting on a chair, one chair, quiet and good. There's not a hope in hell. I would have that in my clinic. They would be pushing each other, fighting, whatever. And these two just sitting there, good as gold, talking about one first, then the next, and just incredible. And the like,
And they queue
yeah,
out there
is
for hours as well. They're like
queue for hours.
just to get in. Like, but yeah, it's a very humbling
It
experience.
is.
Also, it really makes you appreciate and understand. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah, the great things that are getting done there.
Is the Gambia project looking for donations for anything in particular at the moment? Are they looking for
Well,
support?
they always are looking for donations. They just closed a GoFundMe page. They were trying to get funding for a well, which they managed to raise money for. But they're always trying to raise money for the clinic because we were relying on internet and that. So what used to happen during the rainy season, like the internet might drop, and it still happens. But they've actually managed to upgrade. But everything there is completely volunteer. You know, from all the homeopaths around the world, and Samina, they all volunteer their time. Like, so all the money that's raised goes into just keeping that clinic going and keep, paying for the internet, paying for the water. Like, so these
And
people,
paying for the two translators and the person who runs the dispensary.
yeah, the people working there, Gambians working there, they
Yeah.
used to work in the hospitals, and they're actually now, CHE, actually, Mark is going to start training some of them so that we can actually train homeopaths in Gambia to be there. It's amazing.
It's great because even that, what the translators have learned, the one guy said, now I know these people here. He said, so I'm just going to type in the blood pressure rather than let them hear. It was like 260 over 120 or whatever. And we were like, oh my gosh. So, yeah, but they can't go to the hospital because the hospital takes 2 days to get in. And, they also leave with 1 month of remedies. So it's overwhelming sometimes, isn't it, Elaine?
No, it's like, as I said, I've been there since May, and it's just
Life-changing.
watching it. But people are coming back, so we're already seeing the repeats. Like, but even with say Lamin, he's one of the guys, the translators. He's actually used to work in the hospital, and we were doing the case, and the lady like some discharges and whatever, and he says, I think maybe made a rhino, Elaine.
Aww.
I was like, oh my God, like Lamin, you really are. Yeah, you're really picking this stuff up. Like, so it's amazing. Like, I know Nicole has done, you were there in May as well.
Yeah.
Well, so it's just, yeah, it's an amazing project. Yeah. So if anyone does look it up, I know Samina has done an episode.
Yeah, Samina's been on.
Really, and yeah, look it up if you ever feel like even donation at all is always appreciated. But yeah, it's just the contrast between their world and ours. Like where the elderly come, they're 71, 72, and they've got aches and pains. And the reason they have aches and pains is they're still doing physical work because they have to do physical work to put food in the plate. They earn money day by day to feed them. So it's, yeah, very humbling. But what has been wonderful, it's been very enriching.
Yeah.
Can I ask Elaine another question? Because of your experience with sort of mercury overload and things and how to sort of safely remove that from the body, as a child, an Irish child of the 80s, I have a mouthful of metal, and prior to homeopathy. And do you, with your experience with it, do you have a certain, because I haven't had my mercury fillings replaced yet. And I sort of get a bit nervous too, because I've heard, then once it's doing it safely is so important, and finding someone who can really is experienced with that is so important. So yeah, I guess just what would be your advice for someone like me who would like to have a healthier system and be able to remove that? And there's certain things you do beforehand to kind of prep, and alongside and afterwards, what would you sort of advise people? Because I'd say there's so many people in this situation. All people our age will have had probably a mercury filling at some point, and a lot of people won't have had them removed because they don't know, they just know not to get any new ones, but may not have done anything about the ones that are there. So yeah, what would you sort of say to people? How would you guide people?
Firstly, you wouldn't take them all out at once. I don't recommend that. Usually you can take 2 or 3 a time when you're taking them out. Like, so I went through the process myself. Like, first of all, you do need to have a dentist that's doing it properly, like, that's using dams and that, like, 'cause you get dentists start drilling it, you start swallowing it, and that's a whole other load of issues you're giving yourself. There is a protocol. I used Andy Cutler, like, so he would have, before each removal of the fillings, you'd be taking, like, at the very least, vitamin C, zinc, magnesium, and vitamin E. And then at least, I think, about 2 weeks or a month beforehand, that you're taking a certain amount of that daily. And then just to be prepared, because that'll help you. Because when you actually do, even when you start removing the first ones, it does start already dumping blood into or mercury into your blood, like from the organs, and you can have some severe side effects. So yeah, that's the start. And now I think maybe homeopathy is definitely the first way to go before you try, if you ever want to try chelation. But honestly, it was actually just polycrest remedies. I didn't even use the Tanya Janssen protocols. I was really shocked. But
you know what I'm going to say is to get an oligo scan done before you get them removed, and make sure your zinc and your iodine is really good, and your B9 and your sulfur.
But yeah, there's a loads of things. So even when you do a hair test, mercury, it doesn't come up, it doesn't show you exactly how it's operating. It's based on certain rules, and that's how you know it's toxicity. That's going on. Actually, I've seen, like, I'm actually seeing a bit of a resurgence now. Like, I think I had, I don't know how many clients in the last month, like, all on GAPS diet, which is really, like, because that's where we started. And there's this whole area is becoming, because I suppose there's so much stuff going on, like, but yeah, this is really coming up again, which is great, like, because the microbiome was also essential.
Now, I always refer a lot of the clients who inquire about their children with autism to Elaine and Nicole. I know you've treated, I mean, everyone on the team has treated families with children with autism, but I send a lot of those people to the two of you because you have a lot of experience with that. But have you actually got a special area that you enjoy working with, Elaine? And tell me if you don't. Well, like, I should have maybe told you beforehand, but
I absolutely am. I do love supporting parents and kids with autism, because, even just talking to someone like us, like, it's to give them hope. Like, that's the first thing you need to do. Like, I mean, it's not, I feel like the medical system has failed them in lots and lots of ways. So, yes, obviously I love treating children with autism. I'm quite interested in people. I do get a lot of difficult cases with a lot of toxicity, and that is an area of interest of mine. But I also, because I'm at that age now, menopause is my perimenopause is my other area of interest. You might as well go down a road that you're in yourself.
Absolutely. Nicole, tell us a bit about what you've been up to.
Hi, Eugenie. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us on today. And just to continue on with the Gambia, just for a little quick minute on that. For anybody that hasn't signed up as a homeopath or as a student, like, they're constantly looking for people, because it's, even if it's just for an hour a week, an hour a month, whatever you can do. You don't have to be there every day or whatnot. Pop in when you can, and when you can't. I've been out of it for a little bit of time. I've been quite busy myself and just haven't had the time. We're in Perth, where it's a little bit more difficult, because Gambia, I think, it's similar to the UK time. So by the time their clinic opens, it's evening time, night time for us. So it just makes it a little bit more difficult for me at the moment. But yeah, really, it's well worth joining up, and Samina will be delighted if anyone gets in touch with her. Yeah, so yeah, I was having a little bit of a, what am I going to talk about today? And I was chatting with Elaine earlier in the week, and I was like, where am I going to go with this podcast on Friday? Like, there's just so much, like, where do you start? Like, or what do you pick? Like, so what I decided to do was I decided to look back through the year and just try and just capture, like, what has been coming to me this year, like, what sort of cases that I've been seeing. And anxiety, overwhelm, emotional, mental well-being, that has been just everywhere, all ages, like, from young children right through to the elderly. Perimenopausal women, that comes up time and time again. Huge anxiety around that's this stage as well. And yeah, it's just massive. So I hadn't realized it actually until I did go looking, that there was, that was just, it was nearly, I would say it's been in 80% of my clients this year that's what I've kind of treated. And obviously that anxiety then comes from, different, it comes up for people for different reasons. There's obviously the acute anxiety, then there's obviously chronic anxiety, and then we go digging as to where this chronic anxiety comes from. The other thing, I've been trying to do this for a long time, and it's a big one for me to do, but I just feel that with all of that anxiety coming up and the time of the year, I just thought that I would like to just share a little bit. You all know about my own personal story, and I just thought that, like, with it being this time of the year, like, that Christmas obviously is a time of, joy and happiness for most people, and for the majority of people, but it also does bring with it a lot of sadness and grief. Like, there's a lot of people sick at the moment with chronic illness, people in hospital, people who are going to be having their first Christmas without a loved one, and all of that sort of thing. And that's something I just thought I'd like to kind of touch on too, and finish it off with a client that I have seen that was stuck in a grief, but just to share a little bit about my own story and how I seem to be helping people on this journey. Is that 5 years ago, my husband passed away very suddenly. He became ill practically overnight. He was diagnosed with a very rare cancer, and unfortunately he passed away within 5 weeks of his diagnosis. We were caught in the medical system, and unfortunately he never got an opportunity to try any complementary or alternative options. It was just like we were in there and that was it. We were just on that train. So living in Australia, I was now caught here on my own. It was COVID, it was 2020, it was November 2020. I was here on my own. I had 3 children. They were 8, 9 and 16, and it was bloody hard. My family couldn't get in, Paul's family couldn't get in, and yeah, I just had to get on with it. But where I want to sort of go with this, I suppose, today is just to tell people that, like, for me personally, as much as my life was turned upside down and my children's lives, and they'll never be the same again. Like, I lost my husband and they've lost their dad, and we've got on, we have moved on, we're moving on as best we can. We're not stuck in our grief. In actual fact, we worked through it really, really, really well, and it was only over like the months and the years following that I was able to kind of look at it and say, like, this is because of homeopathy. It's because of homeopathy, and I really mean that. Like, so just kind of, when somebody dies, you've got like a lot of support, you've got people around you. I didn't have my family, I didn't have Paul's family, as I said, but I was very lucky in Perth. Like, we've a huge expat community, and everyone rallied around, and the support was unbelievable. Like, I'll never forget the things that people did for me and the kids. But as time passes, right, that kind of goes, because people get on with their lives, but we're still stuck in it. When I say we're stuck in it, we're not stuck in that grieving and sadness constantly. Like, we have to get on with it too. But we know, like, when it's Paul's birthday, when it's at Christmas time, as I was saying, his anniversary, like, but people forget all that, but we're still reliving it. And this year being his 5th anniversary, I actually found this has probably been the hardest year. It just brought up so much. I thought, oh my goodness, where has all this come from? And it just made me jump and grab some remedies again, which I needed. But just again, going back to homeopathy and like this grief, like, and people often being stuck in it, right? As I say, I feel like I wasn't, and I've moved through it, and the children, we've moved through it, pretty well. But all the way along, homeopathy has been beside me. So the children have been treated with remedies. It's a journey, right? And this is the thing. When you start to see a homeopath, it's so important for people to realise that it is a journey. You are journeying with this homeopath. It's not a quick fix. It can be, don't get me wrong. Like, in an acute situation, when that grief all came up for me on Paul's anniversary, and, Ignatia really helped me that day. Fossack is another one that I've often gone to, and it's really, really helpful. But it's a journey, and for anyone out there, like, that's struggling with this, like, just know that there is help, and homeopathy is such a good option. Like, it's just amazing. one of the cases that I wanted to just talk about, I actually had a follow up with this lady yesterday. She's a 79-year-old lady, and she came to me back in February. I see all of her family. When I say see all of her family, I see her 2 daughters and 4 granddaughters, and she then came to see me. And just following up a little bit on Kelly had said in the beginning about, like, you know, that family, you know, that thread like running through the family. I obviously had a lot of background knowledge on this lady before she even came to me, and that really helped. Anyhow, she finally came to see me, and she came with her main things for coming to see me was that anxiety, feeling a little bit depressed, and osteoarthritis. Her husband passed away in 2012, so we're talking like 13 years ago. And all the way through the consult, like, she was stuck. She's living in the past. She can't get past it. It was just there. She literally was stuck back in 2012. So that was back in February, and we're now in November. As I said, I met her yesterday. Since I first saw her, she's also had to have a knee operation, and she's doing fantastic with that. But yesterday, she was like a new lady, and she has been. The knee operation was a little bit of a bump in the road for her, and I did help her with some acute remedies during that time. But each appointment that I've seen her since February, there's been a lightness, there's been a lift, there's something has changed within her. And yesterday was just a bit like the icing on the cake. She was sitting upright in her chair. She was just beaming. She's 79. She's able to get onto her Zoom call, no problem to me. She's emailing me. Just everything has changed about her. She now is talking about being in the present. Her daughter was actually sitting with her during the consult as well, and she kept saying, like, yeah, mom's in the now. She's in the now. Like, and that was the big thing I took out of it, was she's in the now, and that people don't have to live in their grief, their trauma, whatever it is. Like, homeopathy is here to help us all, like, you know. So yeah, I just wanted to share that one. But the other thing I just wanted to say was, before I got on the call, right, I was cleaning my desk. I'm not going to show you my desk, it's a bit of a mess, but anyhow, I was cleaning around and I found these oracle cards. I don't know whether any of you are familiar with them. They're the Homeopathic Oracle deck by Paula Jeffrey, and Paula is a pal of mine in Canada. Anyhow, I opened the box and I just thought, oh, I might read these at the podcast today. But the very first one that was sitting on top was Nat Muir. And they're absolutely gorgeous cards. I'm going to just show it. I don't know whether you'll be able to see it. Probably can't. But
yeah,
they're these beautiful cards, right? But basically, Nat Muir is obviously, we all know, it's a huge grief remedy, and it's made from salt. And on this card, it's just a very simple little card. It just says, the other side of grief is love. To avoid being hurt again, Nat Muir suppresses her emotions and never lets go. Your walls may be keeping pain at bay. Then it asks, but what joy are you also keeping out? And I just thought it was a lovely little card to share, and it was just amazing how it was just sitting there on the top of the deck when I opened it up before I hopped on the call. So yeah, that's my thoughts for the year.
And can I just say, like, during those tough days, when Nicole was going through everything, like, she had said to me so many times, how am I still standing, Elaine? Sometimes I just don't know how I'm still standing. It's definitely the homeopathy. It's definitely helping us. But yeah, you said that all along, all through, you felt that's what got you through, you know, the really tough times. And so I agree, like, I think for grief, homeopathy is amazing.
Amazing.
Mm.
Yeah, Elaine was she's been with me all the way through it. I'd only met Elaine maybe 6 months beforehand, but we've been, maybe a year, but yeah, we've been friends ever since.
Mm. Now, I send a lot of the families with children with autism to Nicole, but I also send a lot of the men to Nicole, because I think all of us treat it like everyone. I only treat women and children, but Nicole has just particularly had a lot of success with treating men. And so I always ask, if somebody says, you know, my husband needs to go see the homeopath, who do you recommend on your team? And then I'm like, yeah, go see Nicole. But have you got any like special interest that you like to treat, Nicole?
well, actually, I do enjoy like when the men come, because I always feel like with the men like that, you know, they're kind of left behind and
They
forget
are,
about themselves. I know
yeah.
us women can forget about ourselves too, but the men tend to. So yes, I do like chatting to the men in consults and whatnot. But I like anything sort of to do with like mental health, any grief, bereavement, that sort of thing. But again, a little bit like Elaine was saying, I'm finding like perimenopause, menopausal stuff is huge at the moment, and I seem to be attracting a lot of women my age. So, you know, it's funny how it goes. Like, you know, I had done a course like 2 years ago, Mike Andrews, in autism, and without anybody knowing, I hadn't advertised it anywhere. I was getting all these like autism cases. And that's kind of fallen off a little bit. And now I'm getting all these women and anxiety, and it's just, and perimenopause. It's crazy how it just changes, like without you even saying anything to anybody, like, you know. So
Nicole's kind of the other opposite end of the scale for like potency wise. Like I know Elaine does a lot of the 6Cs, Kelly does the mega potencies, and then Nicole does a lot of the LMs. So if there's someone that's like crazy sensitive, I often will send them to Nicole as well to give like LMs. And I've learned a lot from Nicole about using LMs, and she's actually inspired me to use them. So I've been using them a lot more as well, which yeah, I'm grateful for.
well, don't forget, they're so high though. They're actually like, they're our most highly dynamized remedies, but like they're so they can act so gentle. Like they really can, like, you know, and I really like working with them. I like working with them because just, you know, if there is aggravations, I can change the frequency and drops and whatnot. But yeah, thanks. Yeah.
It's all right. Yagura, are you awake yet? Because it was pretty early for you when we started, and we said we'd let Yagura go first so she can have time to wake up. Past midnight for Kelly, but she reckons she's got FOMO. She doesn't want to go to bed. I have put in the comments for her to go to sleep, and she refuses. But hopefully Yagura's awake by now, and she can share with us about her year.
I hope I am. Can you hear me? Oh, because there is a lot of background noise. I want to keep the headphones. Thank you so much for sharing, Nicole. It's like when you share your own journey, is giving a lot more to the credit to the homeopathy. It's just because you're going through that journey yourself, and through that journey you start attracting different clients because you are on a different path of your own healing. So it's amazing what homeopathy can do and how can support us through different times of our own life. Now, as a homeopath, we need a homeopath too. It's not that we are just greatly healed. We are doing our own healing, and it very resonates with me right now as well, because sometimes things surfacing out of the blue, and I had some not as major but griefs in my life, and just recently I felt like I need to heal them as well. And we sometimes look for different remedies. But yeah, seeing homeopath, and then I saw new homeopath recently, is an amazing journey. That it's what we want to do at various points in our life. But some of you might know that I do treat lots of patients with dental problems. I do treat dogs, and there are often beautiful stories, cases. Just to add to what Elaine was saying about the teeth, there is actually a remedy made of amalgam. So you can give the amalgam in a homeopathic potency alongside the detoxes that you obviously support the kidneys, the liver. There are sometimes different forms of mercury you want to use when you're actually doing the detox of mercury around the patients who have amalgams, and for example, they cannot remove them. So homeopathy has so many different tools to use depending what the case is. And like Ritu was saying, sometimes we don't necessarily know what's happening because the patients, they don't come back for follow-ups. And that's so important to stick with the homeopath for a while so we can see that change within a person. And those things don't happen overnight often. They might do, like some acute cases, they can be a miracle within 4, 6, 12, 24 hours. But usually in the long chronic things, it takes a while. And the cases I would like to just bring, as some of you might know, I'm a pharmacist by background, and I love working also a lot with patients who are on the medications. They are often difficult cases because, as Elaine and Nicole were saying, how easy, or Sharon as well, how easy is to see change in patients in Gambia where there is no medical suppression, the layer of the medication, that we don't need to do so much detoxes. But homeopathy can work alongside the medical treatment. It can support patients who are on medication. And a couple of years ago, I had a patient who came and she just said, I'm on a medication for blood clots and I want to stop it. And my doctor said no. And I was like, well, I cannot tell you you can stop the medication, but we can start working on the long process where you would be able to reduce that medication. And essentially, we've been working now 2 years. She went from losing weight from size 20, I believe it was 24 to 16, having a blood test every 2 months. I insist on having a blood test to confirm that her INR, her blood clotting agents are in a right range, because when you work with homeopathy, we don't necessarily need the diagnosis, but when you want to come up with the medication, it's so important to understand that, yeah, the bloods are important and we want to know what's happening there. So, and we've been going through that gradual process of reducing her medication. And now she's on a quarter of the tablet twice a week. But it's been a process of 2 years. You cannot just go and stop it suddenly because the body doesn't understand. And she feels perfectly fine. And her doctor is amazed, doesn't obviously ask how she made it. But hey, homeopathy just wins by itself, no? And another case I want to brought here, that it's been a great challenge, in a way a win, but challenge for me was not to get attached this year, was a case of a mom of 7 kids. And it started from acute case. It often happens that someone comes for a very simple thing, and in her case was a case of a sty. And then she decided, okay, I will do the full consultation because there are things. And, you know, you go through the case, ask your questions, and then suddenly she says something, oh yeah, with my last pregnancy, I had a stroke. And I'm like, oh, that's not so simple case then. And there were things that she was struggling with, and we started working on that. We started in actually 23 March. So by March last year, things improved with her speech. Her one side of the body was a little bit not working as before. So a lot of things improved for her. But out of the blue, towards the end of last year, she says, I'm pregnant again. And then I got frozen, like, okay, what do we do now? And I'm like, well, we're going to be doing what we've been doing, improving things in your body, your circulation. But obviously, you need to be under medical supervision. And if they will decide that you need some medication, we can, you know, it's up to you. I cannot tell you if to take them or not, but the kind of safety of the baby is the most important part, and your own safety, because she almost died, unfortunately. Fortunately, nothing happened, but because of the stroke last time, it was very risky pregnancy. And she's been monitored closely, and the end result was that she gave birth without taking even painkillers, which was like when I got that email at the end of June, and I was like, wow, homeopathy just blows my mind every day. And she had at some point had to have like injections for clotting. They decided, and she took it. But there are tools within homeopathy. We put her on a detox and supporting more her liver, improving circulation. I use some Narayani remedies with her as well, just to give her that extra support. And she went perfectly through giving birth, and no complication and no symptoms of what happened with this pregnancy number 7. Now pregnancy 8 went perfectly fine. So yeah, homeopathy can really support you on various moments of your life. And babies and dogs are the best example when people say, oh, it's a placebo. It's not, because they cannot tell what you're giving them. And just recently, last week, I had a case of new dog, and they had a problem with the ears, and aggravation happened. And that's something what we don't touch too much, but those things happen sometimes. And I use kinesiology with the dogs and also with patients, but I was adamant that the remedies are right. If you just need to be patient, you pause when you see aggravation, and 6 hours later, or maybe it was overnight, the owner of the dog emailed me, "Oh, it's improving so much, I cannot believe." But the initial anxiety might be there when she emailed, "Oh, now the other ear is bleeding too." I'm like, okay, let's calm down. If you feel like the remedies are working too deep, too intense, you just slow down, pause. But yeah, and now the dog is really improving a lot. So just want to kind of explain that we might see different phases of homeopathy. We might need homeopathy for acute situations, like if you go to the dentist and you have a dental appointment, you can use homeopathy acutely. But working on your deep core things can be really life-changing. And with that, I mean, like, you might change your career, you might change actually the way you approach the world. And it's amazing to see those changes when you work with clients long term. So much. It's a great pleasure to be sharing here those stories. I've been listening for 90 minutes. Other home. And it's like, it's really, really.
It's always inspiring, hey?
Yeah, so much inspiring. And for me, this year was not much about learning new things as well, but sharing some things I knew from the past few years and doing some webinars on the potency and dose. But next year I want to start learning new things, and I hope the new book of Rita is coming soon in the post, because that's what's my new inspiration to.
I'm waiting for mine to arrive as well. Yeah, absolutely.
About
on the
remedies.
Arctic remedies.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's so lovely to hear you share that, Jagoda. And obviously, when we have clients with very complex pharmaceutical prescriptions, I send them straight to Jagoda, because not only is she a pharmaceutical, like a conventionally trained pharmacist, but she's also worked in homeopathic pharmacies as well. So it's, as a team, we're very lucky to have her to draw on her immense knowledge, which is incredible. And she's really, really good at treating doggies. So if you've got a doggie that needs some help, but you can actually treat a whole bunch of different animals, but you mostly do dogs, and you can book a consult with Jagoda. Also teeth. She's an expert at that. She's got a great homeopathy for teeth Facebook group. Actually, Nicole has a homeopathy for autism Facebook group as well. So yeah, definitely see Jagoda for that. We've also done a couple of podcast episodes with her too, which is amazing. And I just want to also point out, and that our team is like, we've got somebody in America, we've got somebody in Barcelona. It's Jagoda kind of moves around in Europe a bit, but we kind of cover all of the hours. So if you need a homeopath in some sort of weird time zone, we can usually accommodate you. And Rita does a lot of weekends. Kelly does all sorts of hours as well. It's often very early morning here in Perth, and Jagoda does the evenings. So, we have all the hours covered. So if you need a homeopath, and often we can help you acutely as well, you can just email our clinic. We have a little WhatsApp group in our team. So if you need something urgently, you can either email or call our clinic. Then our clinic manager will just send a message to the WhatsApp group, and usually there's somebody on the team that can help you pretty quickly. You can also book a 15-minute free discovery call with any of these homeopaths. Although I think after listening, if you've made it this far, an hour and a half, firstly, congratulations. Secondly, you should be going getting ready for your New Year's celebrations. And so, book with our team. They're amazing. I completely vouch for all of these incredible women on our team. It would be good to get some guys on our team. Maybe we can look at that for 2026. Thank you, ladies, for joining. Kelly, you really need to go to bed now. And looking forward to all of us doing amazing more work in 2026. And I just really appreciate being with all of you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Eugenie.
Thanks
Thank
to
you,
everyone.
Eugenie.
Thank you, everyone.
And Happy
Good
New
night,
Year,
everybody.
everybody.
Happy New Year!
Here's to a
Happy New Year.
year ahead.
Okay, now we can open up the wine. Thank you, ladies. We'll speak soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.